this about half hour after the penalty shootout, and I wasn't going to do a video. But then I realised, actually, I find it quite therapeutic to do one, certainly. Sorry, I'm just the lights there. That was a very familiar display from England then. And whilst there were certain things that went in our favour and there were some positives from the game, I'll get into that. This is not a match review. This is more the frustrations of an England fan, really, who has watched his team go very, very close. Ultimately, to fail for the same reasons that England always fail. And I'll talk to you about those in a second. We did well to go in the lead, and I totally understand what Gareth Southgate's done, and I'm not suggesting throw the baby out with the bathwater. Gareth Southgate has taken us to, 2 semi-finals and a final? If ever a man deserved to continue his work, it's Gareth Southgate. So let's just get that straight from the outset. I've just finished watching a bit of the telly. I walked away. There's a lot of platitudes, a lot of cliched responses, a time to learn, a time to grow. Well, that's all well and good, but we haven't done, historically, England. And I'm really hoping that this England team now do learn and do grow. Because otherwise, if we don't, we're going to find ourselves continually losing on penalties and getting outplayed by teams who have better technique. And this is a theme. I don't say this in hindsight. I've said it before. Any and every tournament. I've been saying it on forums for years. I've been saying it since we started doing videos. Ultimately, that's England's downfall. And I don't think there's going to be an inquest in this particular time, like there often is when England play or England lose. There's a root and branch inquiry. Why? We've done it before. We copied the French model, we copied the German model, we copied the Spanish model. The same conclusion is always made. We don't have enough technical players. We got done for possession in this game in the end. We won the first half. We won the first half because of energy and endeavour. They looked tired. We looked fit. We looked energised in the mind and energised in the body. Second half, the Mancini, the tactician, twiddled it around a little bit, if you pardon the expression, created a bit of a puzzle, and it was a puzzle that Southgate ultimately couldn't solve tactically. And when Southgate couldn't solve it tactically, unfortunately didn't have the technical players on the pitch to unlock the door with a little bit of magic. Let's say that. We'll deal with the penalties, actually. First of all, what can I say? I mean, these are two. I treat Rashford and Sancho differently to Saka. I feel sorry for Saka. He had a go. It just, and I feel more sorry for him because he was sadder than the other two at the end. I feel sorry for him because he had a go, The other two penalties were style over substance. Quite frankly, I think there's too much hype. There's been too much. I was going to say watching Paul Pogba. Maybe in Rashford's case, it's training with Paul Pogba. I think if you're going to do that sort of stuff, you better bury the ball in the back of the net. Rashford's was very technical. He did the shimmy, he did the stutter, he started, he stopped, he gave the goalkeeper the eyes, made him look that way. He almost did everything in the book of magic tricks of taking a penalty. Right, and then just didn't hit the ball accurately. Well, taking a penalty is not a book of magic tricks, and it's why Harry Maguire just went bang into the top corner. I think it was overthought, overcomplicated, and unnecessary. But I don't overly blame those two, Sancho and Rashford, because they hadn't been involved in the game at all. So what Southgate learned from that, don't bring on specialist penalty takers, particularly if they're not specialist penalty takers, because those were not the run-ups and execution of two confident players. And if they're not confident in taking a penalty, I'd suggest they're not specialist penalty takers, in which case, why are they being brought on to take penalties in such a situation? That was a failure. And that was a failure from somebody who should know an awful lot about taking and missing penalties, which ultimately cost England. As I say, felt slightly a different Saka. Saka had a go. Saka had been on the pitch. Got no complaints there. He put his hand up. Whereas the other two probably did put their hand up. They probably said, yeah, we want to have a go at this. But sometimes you've got to protect people from themselves. And that was You know what it was? They were FIFA players' penalties. I'm like, oh, like console. It's like doing that. He's missed it. I've done the run up. I've done the eyes. I've done the shimmy. No. Just put it in the back of the net. But I don't blame. It's not their fault that we're out. It's the manager's fault that we're out, that we lost. But it's also the manager's gets the credit for getting us there. Absolutely it does. But ultimately, when we faced a quality team, we got undone for exactly the same reasons that England always get undone, which is technique and penalties. Southgate should know this. I mean, he really, really should. That game was... Let me get this out of the way as well. I thought you get to the end, you take penalties into account. Pickford's man of the match. Right, Pickford had a good game. Actually, I did actually make some notes. By the way, my man of the match was, up to that point that he went off, was Declan Rice. And not just because it's West Ham. Declan Rice had a couple of, I thought, average games this tournament. I've called it. I've said on occasion they was the right choice to take him off and keep Phillips on. So on occasion, I've given Phillips man of the match and not Declan Rice. So it's not about that. But the reason I thought Declan Rice was man of the match was because we didn't have any technical stranglehold over the game. It was actually, look, he tackled really well, did some really good tackles, some really good interceptions. But the Declan Rice that plays for West Ham played for England tonight in exactly the same style. He was dragging the ball forward, he was taking it forward, he was taking it into contact. Sorry, a bit of a rugby term, but he was gaining territory, another rugby term, and driving the team forward. That was what, and it was actually, it was causing Italy some problems. At that point, there was a very, very clear thing to be done. Well, firstly, I wouldn't have taken Declan Rice off anyway at that point. But if you are going to decide to take Declan Rice off, make sure you're doing it for a very, very good reason. And that is because I'm going to take Declan Rice off because driving the ball forward from midfield is what needs to be done. Well, there's two choices. Then I thought the game was crying out for Jude Bellingham at that point to do exactly that. Or you drop Mason Mount in there and let him do that. It was very odd, and he couldn't quite help himself. And then I'm talking about Gareth Southgate here by bringing in Jordan Henderson. Couldn't quite help himself there, and I thought that was typical Southgate. And because Henderson came on, he was a passenger by and large. He literally stood there and watched the game being passed around him. Southgate's going to watch out for that. He's clearly got his favourites. And I know he took him off at the end, but he got it completely wrong. The whole venture of taking Rice off, putting Henderson on, then ultimately takes Henderson back off. It was a mission, I think, that well, he either got it wrong, he'll probably say he did it for the specialist penalty takers to come on and do the business. Well, they didn't come on and do the business, so actually neither did it. Henderson impact the game, and nor did the specialist penalty takers. So that's that, basically. He can't quite help himself with his favourites. So that's certainly something. There was no real plan B from England in terms of emphasis. I don't mean in terms of style, in terms of formation. We saw it. Took Trippier off, put Saka on, changed formation. Went from 3 at the back, 5 at the back, what you want to call it. He went to 4 at the back. Change of formation, no change in emphasis. Eventually, when he did bring Grealish on, I thought, I mean, there were a couple of occasions when Grealish did his stuff, did his business, but the other players on the pitch didn't know what he was doing. They just weren't up. It reminded me of Di Canio, funny enough, a lot of the time. A lot of the time he does. And the reason I picked Di Canio at West Ham is Di Canio at West Ham for a lot of the time didn't have players that were on his wavelength. And he would start dumping the ground and throwing his arms up, thinking, why didn't you know I was going to do that? Why didn't you read that? I thought Grealish on the 2 or 3 occasions he broke through or he's in the box or something like that. It was squandered because the players around him weren't quite on his level. So for that reason, I probably would have tried to leave Mason Mount on. Or, which is why I said at the start of the tournament, or numerous times, with Jack Grealish on the pitch, he needs to be on there with Foden next to him, or something like that. Good players like to be around good players, to play those sort of 1-2s, play those triangles. But there's just this mistrust of technical players. And I think ultimately it's the reason we lose the game. It's the reason why at the end of the game, you look at England, who are the home team, have 6 shots and Italy have 19. It's not good enough. You've got to... He was too conservative. He really was. And the front three that he played, you've got to bear in mind... Okay, so the goal, by the way, Luke Shaw will forever... I mean, forever, I've got to say, I think he'll forever be a bit of a hero of mine for scoring in a final for England. And I think that's fantastic. He gets a free pass for the rest of his career whenever Man United play West Ham. He just does. I think he's... I'd have loved him to have been the hero today. I really would. I think it's a really good story from a lad that's had a really bad injury, was treated terribly by his manager, Jose Mourinho. And just, you know, he comes from down the road just off the M3 there. So, you know, I've got a bit of love for Luke Shaw there. And the goal was Trippier was wing back to wing back. Wing back to swing back. Okay, great. But they are 2 defensive players. They are. Trippier's a defender. I mean, Diego Simeone's made him more of a defender at Atletico Madrid. Luke Shaw's a defender. I mean, he's done very well with his assists. When you put those there and you've got 3 centre-backs and you've got Rice and Phillips sat in front, then what you're saying is, Mason Mount, Harry Kane and Raheem Sterling do our attacking. Ain't enough attackers. And there's no one there really massively comfortable on the ball, that being said. Kane does always look a class act when he drops deep, but you need a little bit more than that. And the fact of the matter is, on this occasion, I think Sterling's been one of our better players, arguably our best player, arguably England's best player in the tournament. He wasn't bothering them, he wasn't causing them much trouble tonight. They had him easy. They didn't click, they didn't function. Kane, Mount, and Sterling as a trio didn't function. And I think whatever system Southgate came up with, it stopped us. What would actually been successful in the last few games was supplying Harry Kane. That stopped us today. So whatever tactical plan Southgate thought he came up with, I'm sure the intention wasn't to starve Harry Kane, but that's what happened. Harry Kane was starved. And not, by the way, because I thought Chiellini, Bonucci and all the rest were brilliant. No, I think they were there to be got out. I think you could have still got them. In fact, early on in the game, I thought Kane was winning the duels. I think... Well, it's very, very bizarre thing. So to sit back and think, okay, I'm going to see this game out. I wouldn't have minded it, but I just thought there was one. But the moment he switched that the back 5, then really you're sacrificing an attacking player for a defensive one. Yes, Trippier got the assist. I get it. But by and large, someone like Jadon Sancho, for example, or Jack Grealish is going to attack more than Kieran Trippier will. It was basically what happened there was a game of energy, which the first half England became a game of technique. And we didn't have the answer. Well, we did have the answer, but Southgate didn't want to reach into his bag of tricks and pull the answer out or deploy it in a way that was really suitable. And I think... the thing is, I thought the ref was pretty damn good throughout the game. I thought he let an awful lot go. There were some things. I think the tackle on Grealish was a red card, by the way. But I'm not going to overly complain. And you know, I like to think I call it fair. I didn't think the Raheem Sterling penalty against Denmark was a penalty. If I see it, I think fair enough. I think the Chiellini one, the kids were all going mad when Chiellini pulled back Saka's shirt, but it wasn't just a yellow. I mean, it was naughty, it was cynical, but it was just a yellow, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't a red card there. Anyway, but I thought the referee, by and large, was good. So I don't particularly want to blame it on him. This was England's. This was England's issue here, and I just think when it came to the crunch, when Gareth Southgate saw what Declan Rice was doing, he should have thought Jude Bellingham on, but he just can't quite help it. It was Jordan Henderson who did nothing. Jordan Henderson ain't the future of England. So I hope he's learned something from this. I mean, that was obviously bitterly disappointing to get there and to lose on penalties. And you can ask no more of Jordan Pickford. Jordan Pickford put England in a position to win that game. and England didn't do it. And everybody will say the words that, that his teammates didn't let him down. And but ultimately they did. So they didn't mean to. But ultimately they did. Their penalties weren't good enough. As I said, overthought, overcomplicated. I imagine that's quite a hard thing to remember. I'm not a golfer, right? I'm not a golfer, but I do play golf badly. Whenever I play golf at my worst is when, and anyone that plays golf will sort of know this, sometimes you get taught too many things. And, it starts off, don't lift your backswing up too much. Your feet positioning, where your head is positioned over the ball, where the ball's positioned. And all of a sudden, you find yourself having to think when you're addressing the ball, about to basically take a swing. You find yourself having to think of 7 or 8 things. Okay, where's the ball? Is the ball forward in my stance, back in my stance? How's my grip? Is it up? Is it too high? Is it too low? How much should my backswing be? Is my head too far forward? You end up thinking too much. And sometimes you just think, oh, there was a point where I was just hitting it. And it was fine. And it's quite a lot to remember. I don't find it, I think, until it becomes second nature, it's a bit of a hindrance. I reckon all that stuff's a lot to remember. The shimmy, the false start, the stop, the kick, the give the goalkeeper the eyes, all of that. I don't know. I think you might be taking a little bit too much of yourself. What do I know? I don't know. I've never taken a penalty. I'm not even sure I took a penalty with my school team or anything like that. I don't think I did. So what do I know about penalties? Nothing. But I do know about overcomplicating things. And sometimes you could just add too much. I juggle. And when you try and do a juggle, you throw a trick in, you juggle, you want to throw it under the leg or behind the back. Or the moment you do that, you start thinking of all these things. It becomes just a little bit too much to think. And sometimes it's just easier just to throw the balls in the air. And I think there was a bit of that going on. Or what do I know? I don't know. But I still think we have 2 things to sort out. Number 1 is the penalties. We shouldn't still be doing it after now. I thought we'd laid the ghost to rest, actually, on that one. The other one is the technique. We've got to decide what we're going to be. Because let's be fair, on the first half of that game, we were winning the game quite handsomely, playing a Premier League high-energy style, and it was winning. But I think if we aren't going to go past that ultimate level, we can't keep repeating the same mistakes, which is losing control of the game. Looking at another team who's, whether it's Chiesa, whether it's Barella, I know he went off onto other games, or whoever the case may be, the most technical player on the pitch turns out not to be an England player. We can't keep having that. That's not a good thing. There you go. Hopefully he does learn from it. And this is going to sound a little bit cruel, actually, but in many respects, it's quite good that these players like Jordan Henderson are probably a little bit old for the next time around, because it actually needs someone like Bellingham to play in the team. How can I say it? Jordan Henderson's birth certificate has to remove Jordan Henderson from the team, because I'm not actually sure Southgate is ruthless enough to do it himself. I'd love to know. You know what? I'd love to know what he's thinking of was for bringing Henderson on. I think I already know it. I don't think I need to know what his thinking was. But it was wrong, and ultimately it was the wrong decision. He added nothing to the game at all. But I could have told you that. I had it written down. It was the second thing that I'd written on my page, which is game crying out for Bellingham. Southgate paralysed, game crying out for Bellingham. I thought it was clear. It doesn't have to. It was just as soon as I saw Declan Rice, I think this is what had the Italians turning and running the other way, was Declan Rice. They started grouping round it. Okay. Actually, even Grealish being on when Rice was on. I know they're totally different players, but they can't put 3 men on both of them. That's why I thought you get Bellingham driving. He's going to attract men, get Grealish on, give him some space, do something. It was clear. So I just found it weird that Southgate and his coaches looked at that game and thought, what this game really needs is Jordan Henderson. And it just made me think, now looking at it retrospectively, I think at that point they were trying to see the game out to go to penalties. Well, that's all well and good, but ultimately you're your penalty plan failed because we lost. Because the penalty takers, 3 of them, weren't very good. The goalkeeper was great. The goalkeeper played his part. I didn't think Italy were particularly good. Italy made a couple of mistakes. Well, either Italy made mistakes or Pickford did well, whatever. But the goalkeeper gave England the opportunity. Sorry, the goalkeeper gave the penalty takers the opportunity to go and win the trophy. They didn't do that. But as I said, I don't blame them individually. I think you can trace this back far to half time, actually, far more before it got to that, and then back to the Henderson one and the lack of technical players on the pitch. As I said, same old. Ultimately frustrating. Was it a good tournament? Yes. Was it enjoyable? Yes. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. But you get sick of losing, and I say sick of losing finals. First time I've seen an England playing final, but I'll tell you what, I've seen us play and losing semi-finals. Plenty and quite a lot, and it's always the same sort of stuff. There's near misses, but I hope they don't look at that and think, oh, it was England lost because of a goalpost, because of Marcus Rashford. England lost the European Championships by that much. I hope they don't do that, because that wouldn't be reflective of what happened. The truth of the matter is that basically we were outplayed and the best team won. Italy beat us. And if you start looking at it and analysing it, that actually it's just the width of half a post that made the difference, you won't rectify the correct issues. You're not going to address the real reasons why. And the real reasons why are just the old reasons. It's technique and it's penalties. But forget the penalties for a second. The technique one. Well, that used to be a terminal problem. And there's a difference, and here's what I'll finish with. As opposed to yesteryear, when we used to look at it and think, oh, look at these other teams, look at these other countries, look at the Dutch, look at the Spanish, look at the French, look at these players that they've got that can dribble and pass and do all these wonderful technical skills. What England need to do is produce those players, and then we can compete at this top level and win the big games. That's not the case anymore. We have the players now. The next stage is to actually start playing them.